Oh, let's make that bigger as we go live here. Welcome on in. It is, well, for the first time, we're trying to do a live Zoom here for the What a Rush podcast on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. I am Joe Roderick, the host of the What a Rush podcast, and you see that ugly face on the other side of your screen. That is Road Warrior Animal Joe Laurinaitis. What's going on, my man? How are you doing?
Well, man, just trying to get through this crazy Corona crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've been so. I mean, how? Let me just ask you first. How is your phone still blowing up from last night's Dark Side of the Ring?
Let me tell you something. First of all, I want to say, Dark Side of the Ring guys, Evan and the guys did a great job. Okay, a lot of positive feedback, but the one thing, and I told them this in the beginning after I saw the Benoit show. I said the fans are going to go nuts and blow up my phone because they're going to say it should have been a 2-hour special. If any of them should have been, that one should have been. And because there's so much stuff that we've done in our career, we didn't even touch on the tip of the iceberg of what we did.
Yeah.
And I mean, just little things like having the guys who imitated Hawk and I on the show, getting on a trampoline and power bombing my kid, you know what I mean? Or playing that because that's what Hawk did. That's what, it's interaction with family and fans and everything else. When we did a car commercial, we picked the one car up and walked with it. I mean, things that we could have shown and more gone into depth of what Hawk was going through too.
Yeah.
So there's so much left on the table, man. My phone has been blowing up. My Facebook has been blowing up. Probably at least, I'm not kidding you, man, 1,000 different messages.
Jeez. We do want to mention that this special is brought to you by the folks at Manscaped.com. They've sent out the new Lawnmower 3.0 for Manscaped.com, offering precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. The folks at Manscaped.com have been trying to keep, they've been trying to keep men for the past, I guess, few years now, trying to keep us nice and clean and groomed, Joe. And I think, you and I both could probably benefit from that from time to time. Water-resistant technology allows you to groom in the shower. And the one of the coolest features on the new 3.0, it comes with a little LED flashlight on it for those.
Great!
Yeah.
So that way, when you're trimming the hedges, you can really see everything.
Yeah. So in case in case the lighting in that in your bathroom or wherever just isn't that great, they have a nice charging stand too. You just don't have to plug it in and go. The Lawnmower 3.0 at Manscaped.com. The code now is LOD. That's promo code LOD, which they got into a little bit on the show last night. We will get into it a little bit here. I want to know first, so it was...
Let me get this out. I got to get it out. That's a good code, the LOD one.
Yeah.
But your wife told me that she's got a nickname for you, and it was Lawn Boy. So... the Manscaped 3 will come in real handy at your house.
Absolutely. It has already, actually. It's it absolutely has. Hey, so before I know, so it was a lot of you, it was a lot of Paul Ellering last night, and it had a lot of Mike's brothers, his two brothers. Now, on the podcast, and you can go back and listen to that, I know that you've talked a lot about Mike's wife, Dale, and that you reach out to her every now and then. When was the last time you talked with Mike's brothers, with Hawk's brothers?
I talked to Dan right when they were doing this film. As a matter of fact, I gave them Dan's number. Not talked to Rich since Hawk's funeral.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to Tom once or twice. The other brother, they didn't get in there. I have not talked to Mike's sister probably 20-something years.
Yeah.
But there's other things too. Dale should have been in the thing, man. They should have got a hold of Dale somehow. I wouldn't have done the show until you got a hold of his wife, to be honest. And
well, we know from Owen Hart, we know that his wife wants, nothing to do with wrestling, but it does look like she is going to be interviewed in next week's Dark Side of the Ring.
Oh, yeah, she's in, man. She's very blunt on how Owen's forced to do what he had to do,
Is Mike's wife similar to that? I mean, because it says, she came into the picture very late in his career, so she wouldn't have been around for all of the times that you guys were out on the roads and winning those titles.
Well, another thing too is I think there's tremendous amount of heat between Hawk's brothers and Dale. So they kind of blamed her a little bit for some of Mike's downfalls and shortcomings. So it wasn't exactly a very huggy relationship.
Yeah.
So that's probably why she wasn't in it. But man, there's people you could have interviewed too, like some of Mike's best friends in high school. You could have interviewed, a lot of the people in his family, and you could have interviewed people in my family. Like you should have had an interview. And I try to tell the guys here when we were recording it, you should have interviewed Jessica, you should have interviewed Joe, you should have interviewed James. I mean, it doesn't help to have an interview from an NFL player on the show as well.
That would be the one. Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to Jessica or Joey, but I mean, James is a former, NFL, former NFL linebacker and All Pro collegiately. So I'm surprised they didn't put him in there just for that.
Yeah,
fame.
and like Joe came down and saw our first matches in Georgia Championship Wrestling when he was 2 or 3 years old. My mom and dad would bring him down here, right? And Jessica, you could imagine the stories that I told them, which they remember. My son Joe remembers, of Hawk being all muscle relaxed in my living room and tripping over my coffee room table. You could have one of those guys portray that and me explaining to the kids, hey, man, this is why you don't do some certain things. It would have been a good story to tell. We left a lot of things unturned.
Yeah.
And I understand you got about a 50-minute show to get everything in. Hard to get 22 years of the best tag team of all time in 50 minutes. And I think, and what I think what had happened is not only did you turn the show, you ripped off the fans because the fans were waiting. And then it was like, where's the rest of it?
Yeah.
So I think if they're smart, if Vice is smart, they should do an encore presentation. And I'm willing to do that with them if they want to do it. Hey, Road Warriors Part 2, and because you can continue it on. We left the door open.
Yeah.
To do a Part 2 if they want.
So have you talked to Mike's brother yet about how he thought the episode went last night?
No, man. I watched it last night, and then I had to go right away to a doctor's appointment this morning. I've not reached out yet. I've not. I don't expect there to be any reaching out going on. You know what I mean? They're both great guys. I mean, all Hawks brothers are great guys. So, yeah. I mean, I did get some I think Dan's wife, Chrissy, sent me a nice text, saying how, they wish that their kids could have met Uncle Mike. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because Dan's got a couple kids now, and I think they could have wished they could have met Uncle Mike, and they never got the chance to. But she thought the show was done very well. But I'm proud of those guys for doing it, But like I talked to Evan Hunsley, the guy who did the show with me from he's another Minnesota guy, and who works for Vice. And I said, man, they didn't get anything in the round table. You didn't get anything with Ed Sharkey, myself, Barry Darsow, Scott Norton, and Ellering sitting there together around the table that we shot.
Oh, so that you guys all were together at some point because
we were all together in Minneapolis, man, downtown, and we did it. I said, where was that? He goes, yeah, I know, man. We ran out of time. The show was so packed we couldn't get it in. I said, so we have that whole group of stuff that we did, talking about stories growing up with Norton and Hawk, talking about us, going through training camp, talking about us getting ready to make the run, what it was like to drive an Ellering's black van that Paul mentioned,
mm-hmm.
and for things like that, we didn't get to tell any of those stories.
So when was this? I mean, I know you told me when you were going up there. I can't remember. When was this filmed? When were all of those speaking parts filmed?
Probably had to be done about 6 months ago now.
Okay.
Yeah, it was before I went over to guitar
to
go work. So, yeah, it had to be almost 6 months ago now. But, it's – yeah, that's right. It had to have been because I had to get these guys in and out because I had to go from our trip.
Yeah. So most of it was spent about Hawk's troubles, about his issues with substance abuse, and I mean, when you look at it all, when you look at the timeline of everything and how it all went down, there's no easy way to really describe everything that he did to his body over the years. Do you think it was portrayed, I guess, fairly to him, or I mean, truthfully with all of the issues that he had?
I think it was done more than fair, to be honest. They got some parts of it wrong. I never said I've had enough, I'm done with the team. Hawk's the one that kind of effed off and just left.
Mm-hmm.
Left us hanging, like Paul Ellering said on the clip. He says, "Hey, we were in Hershey, Pennsylvania, waiting for Hawk at TV, and Hawk never showed up." They didn't get in the part about Hawk calling Vince's secretary and saying I quit. They didn't get the part of me finishing out the dates to be a businessman. You know what I mean? They didn't get the fact that Hawk just said screw everything and took off to Japan and made his own deal. They didn't get any of that in. So actually, Vice was very nice in the fact that they didn't do any of that stuff, which they could have done very easily because that was all discussed. You know what I mean? But, hey, at the end of the day, like I said, we left the book open for round 2 if we want to do round 2,
Yeah. So they did show a lot of Eddie Sharkey. I got to be honest, I didn't know Eddie Sharkey was still alive. And they
85 years old, man.
When was the last time before this that you spoke to him?
I spoke to Ed, I think a couple years ago. I did a shot in Minnesota. I ran into Ed. And then, no, actually, take that back. About a year ago, I did an appearance in Minneapolis when we got put in the Minnesota Hall of Fame. Remember I told you
Yeah.
we got and Eddie was there because Eddie got put in too.
Yeah.
So I saw Ed there at that particular event. But, man, before that, it was years, Eddie's still the same. He was 85 years old, was going to walk around the block to go get his car. And I said, Eddie, jump in my car here. We'll take you over to the thing. Ed's a character, man. He always has been.
Anything from that time at Grandma B's with all of those other famous WWF guys that you feel like they could have gotten a little bit in depth on?
Well, I think they could have done more interviews with people. It's hard because some of the guys are dead, like Rick Rude and
Right.
stuff like that, and and Henning's dead. You could have got a good clip from Henning, but you had Wayne the Train Bloom. You could have got some clips from him and from Mike Enos because they were right there during all that time. You could have gotten more from the Benacasas who owned Grandma B's at the time, Tony Benacasa, and a bunch of the guys there that we used to work for down there at Grandma B's when it was still around. You could have you could have had Mike Roberts, Hawk's best friend through childhood and everything up. You could have had him on there. You know what I mean? And so they missed out on a lot of opportunity. That's why we said, man, there's a lot of unturned stone and a lot of information left out there on the table.
I think one of my favorite parts was when Nikita Koloff introduced himself and let everyone know that he really wasn't Russian.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I wasn't born animal either. It's funny because Nikita always calls himself from Lithuania. Of course, he was best friends with me and my family. So, and we are Lithuanian, so that's where that came from.
Yeah. And so I guess they had Norton on there. They had Barry Darsow on there too. I thought the stories with Norton were really good, knowing the history between Norton and Hawk. I thought that was really good that they were able to include him in that as well.
Well, yeah, they should have, and that's the way it really happened. I mean, Norton was like the toughest guy, I think, what do you say, from the west side of Minneapolis, and Hawk was the toughest guy on the north side, and they literally were on the opposite side of the tracks. And, it was like, Hegstrom beat this guy up, and Norton goes, well, I beat this guy up faster. You know what I mean? And that's the way it was in high school, because they were inner city schools, But yeah, it was Norton had a lot more great information that we discussed when we were all there.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get the important things in that I wanted to get in important for the fan. How Hawk and I, and because this was about pretty much Hawk, how he would stop, and we didn't get into the story in about the wino who was down on his ass and had no money to eat or buy booze or whatever in New York City, where Hawk says, hey, animal, give me $100, and gives the guy my $100 I gave him. And then I had to tip the guy $100 too. So the guy got $200 for doing nothing. He was going to buy wine for the rest of Boone's Farm for the rest of the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of stories that Hawk was the kind of guy that would give you shirt off his back. They didn't tell any of those stories that I told the guys. So I'm kind of disappointed in the fact that they left out so much good stuff for the amount of time that I dedicated to getting this show off, that the show deserves to have an encore show number 2.
Who were the? Did you get to meet the two guys that portrayed you and Hawk that were kind of doing the wrestling in the shadows? Did you know who those two were?
No, man. One of the guys I knew was Rob Thompson from Toronto.
Okay.
He's a guy that actually recruited. We were that company that Shane Douglas was just trying to put together in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
I recruited that Rob Thompson guy and gave him a letter of intent to do that. So he looks good. He's ripped up guy, looks good. I don't know who the bigger guy was.
Yeah.
I don't think I may have met him on the road sometime, but they did a good job. I mean, it's easy to do when you're in the shadows and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Right. I know Jake something of Glory Pro, who's on Impact Wrestling, was one of the jobbers getting beat up. So I knew him was that he was on there, but I didn't know who the other two were from that. And on top, I don't know if there just was a lack of footage. But yeah, when you talk about things they could have gone more in depth on, the stuff that you guys did in Japan, I thought that touched on the popularity, how famous you guys were, more media than Michael Jackson, and showing some of the showing the press slam and everything else that you guys did there. I thought that was really really cool. And then they showed you running in Japan with the Crockett Cup. And I don't think they mentioned the Crockett Cup at all during the show last night, did they?
Yeah, the Crockett Cup. You could have done stuff from the War Games when Hawk got tugged in last, was going 100 miles an hour, or knocked out 3 of the Horsemen.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have done so much stuff. I mean, Hawk and I, we won All Japan, New Japan, Battle Arts, World Japan, 0-1. We won all those different titles and wrestled some of the greatest guys. You could have shown stuff with Riki Choshu and Tendu and Baba, Inoki. You could have shown Masa Saito. So many good stuff. They didn't show any of it. You missed out on a whole audience there. You could listen, Joe. You could have had clips from Carlos Colon on Puerto Rican TV. You could have had clips from Montreal TV. You could have had clips from Japanese TV. More. You could have had clips from South Korea when we went over there and did a couple speaking engagements. You could have had clips from Kuwait. You could have had clips from everywhere.
Right.
Florida Championship Wrestling. You could have had Kevin Sullivan on there. It would have been awesome because Kevin brought us down to Florida. And he could have told the story how we freaking popped Florida territory before it was ready to go dead in the water. I mean, there was so much good stuff you could have told. You could have done the stories when we were at the Drawbridge Hotel in Cincinnati and security guy comes up to me and says, "Animal, Hawk's passed out in the foyer up here." And show me putting him to his room how he's all messed up, right?
Yeah.
20 minutes later, he comes back down. He's trying to go swimming. And then the Godwin says, "I'll go take it back to his room." And Henry Godwin carried him back to his room. You could have shown stuff like that, step by step by step, but they just didn't do it. There's a lot of funny things too.
Yeah,
like showing Hawk doing the interview by himself, and he's playing both parts of two different guys. He's playing Eddie Murphy and Walter Cronkite, talking in both their voices.
They did get in depth on SummerSlam over in London at Wembley Stadium, and they got in depth with that match a little bit. Something that we say that we're going to talk about all the time on the podcast, and we've never really dove that deep into it. One of the stories of just talking to you that I didn't know about was the backstage, the arguing with Vince, or being just so out of it trying to have a conversation with Vince, knowing then that it was going to be for lack of a better term, a shit show that it was when you guys got in the ring.
The way that happened was we were sitting on the motorcycles and we're getting ready to do a run through. And Vince is standing in front of us like he was talking. We weren't standing up the way they portrayed it in the show. We were sitting on 2 Harleys. And Hawk and Vince is telling us what he wants to have happen. And out of the blue, Hawk goes, "Vince, I got an idea." And I'm looking at Hawk, I'm looking at Vince, and Vince is just getting hot. And he goes, "Hold on a minute, Mike." He goes, No, Vince, I got to get this out. I got an idea. And Vince started getting hot, And you could tell Hawk was all plastered it up. And when they came to me for the finish, I told Jack Lanza, who was my agent, I said, "Jack, he can't climb the ropes. He's going to fall off the ropes." And you saw in the match where he was stumbling in the middle of what we were doing there. And he actually had to walk around me as I was going to power slam DiBiase, and it was that kind of stuff and you can see when I'm covering whoever I'm covering there, I look over and I'm looking over the announcer's table and I can see Vince slamming his fist down on the table because he was so pissed.
Was there ever a thought during that match to change the finish and have Money Inc. win the match?
No, they weren't going to do that because the reaction Hawk and I got in the UK was freaking crazy. You could hear it on TV. It was nuts.
Yeah.
It was even 1,000 times louder in person. You had all 90,000 people chanting LOD. It was crazy. So there was no way they were going to not let us win. The only thing that was bad about it was that we were supposed to wrestle the National Disaster for the titles, and we didn't do it.
Yeah. And that's another thing where if you could have gotten if you could have had Rotunda or DiBiase interviewed for that too, and I get Rotunda at the time was still under contract with WWE, so maybe that wasn't going to happen. But DiBiase
right now, I don't know if you want him to interview him at all.
Yeah.
What's going on with their poor family?
So the another thing that was missed out of they talked about I liked Droz, seeing Droz on that I thought was really good to see him. Have you talked with him at all recently?
No, I've not seen Droz in a long time. Our paths don't really cross. He lives in New Jersey, so I don't get to see him very often, and it's hard for him to get around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he used to come around once in a while when he was married to Julie, who was one of the seamstresses girls that made all our tights, because Julie made a lot of our stuff. And but when they got divorced, man, I don't know. I don't think he comes around at all.
So they mentioned the Droz angle. They got some good quotes from Droz talking about what it was like to be teamed with you guys and the pressure that came along with that. But from that era, they also, I don't know if you wanted to talk to her, but there was no mention at all of Sunny.
No, man. Well, I think because when this was filmed, she was still in jail. Okay.
But at least mention it, right?
You should have mentioned that. You should have mentioned the part and shown it on TV where Hawk came down to the ring and started dancing around with the Oddities. Remember the Oddities? Mm-hmm. Their music was playing. They should have shown that because it was funny as hell. And they should have mentioned, Tammy's name because, I mean, she was our manager for a little bit. As short-lived as it was, she was. They could have shown another section of it, too, where they were going to put Christy Hemme with us at one time.
Yeah.
And Vince yanked her out of the match right as we were walking through the curtain. He goes, "You don't need a girl." Grabbed her and took her away from us.
That was was that when you had your run with Heidenreich, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so and the show did stop right when Hawk died.
And they could have, just think of it, Joe, that you just mentioned a good point. They could have continued on after Hawk's passing with me tagging up with Heidenreich.
Nobody wants to remember that.
No, I know, but it's just to live up. Do you go about it with the angle about trying to keep the LOD name going?
Yeah.
In memory of Hawk. You know what I mean? And I could have got on there and say, "Hey, man, I did it in memory of my partner." You know, I didn't like the way they did it, but I did it in memory that way. But yeah, there was just a lot of stuff that was left undone.
Yeah, the biggest thing I'm taking from this is the round table that we missed out on with you guys sitting around and talking. So who all was a part of that round table?
It was Ed Sharkey, Ellering, Barry Darsow, myself, and Scott Norton.
Yeah,
it was great, bro. We sat around for about an hour and just shot the shit about Hawk.
You need to find a way to get the rights to that, or get them to post that somewhere at some point, because that's something I think a lot of people would want to see.
I think they got it on Vice.com. If you can get on there, they have other clips that were not shown, I think. But I think a bunch of people have contacted me, and I don't know how they got a hold of some of the numbers at Vice, because I never give out any numbers, but that Evans is going to be getting called, I think, because people are just contacting him, I guess, now about this, because the people want to see an episode 2.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, someone hit the nail on the head the other day. We're considered the Hulk Hogan of tag teams. Why do you give anybody that's doing on the show 50 minutes, or an hour, and you don't give us the 2 hours? I mean, if you're going to give it to a guy that, murders his family and you're probably going to give Owen Hart a good 2 hours, maybe. If not, maybe Owen may just get an hour or two. But the two people that should get 2 hours should have been Owen Hart and myself.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that because I want to see myself on TV. I don't need to. But I'm saying for the fan who and this is what the people at Vices have got to learn. For the fan who pays money for the action figure, for the T-shirt, for all the collectible stuff, they deserve to get the most out of the show. And it's only going to help Vice's ratings anyway.
Right.
You know?
So, in all, I think last night I want to say that I think you were portrayed in a very good light and a positive light last night on the show. I think you would probably agree with that as well.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I really didn't get off my trail a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like, listen, were we complete angels? No, but I wasn't, the kind of guy that was going to be the partner that was going to be getting in trouble, with my family and everything else because of stupid things being done.
Yeah.
And I had pride, not that Hawk didn't, but Joe, I've been around a lot of people with a substance abuse problem. And when you do, you're not thinking straight. It's like I said last night, when Hawk was on, he was the best. But when he was off, he was really off. And that's true to anything in life, and I always wanted to be true to the gimmick. There was no way I would ever have walked out on our team. And that's just the way I feel.
Next week is the finale of the Dark Side of the Ring, the season 2. Owen Hart. I'm guessing you're looking forward to watching that next Tuesday.
Yeah, man. Because I think I told you, James and I went up to Owen Hart's funeral. I mean, Owen traveled with us quite a bit on the road, when I traveled, and, he would come stay at my house before he went back to Calgary. And, and he would just talk so highly of his family, with his daughter and his son, Oates Jr., and his wife, it's just, I don't know, man. You don't get close to too many people in this wrestling business because you don't know how long anyone's going to be around. And that's one guy that, he would have been for sure future world champ over and over and over like his brother.
Well, we want to thank everybody that watched last night, that has watched this today. A quick little recap that we are doing of the Dark Side of the Ring, the last ride of the Road Warriors. Joe, you and I, we'll talk soon.
All right, buddy.
All right.